In today's video, we're gonna see what happens if all the relatives in the NFL switch teams. The first one is gonna be Kenneth Gainwell. He just so happens to be the cousin of Fletcher Cox, so actually they're gonna stay on the same team. But there is an Eagle that's gonna switch teams. How about Big Play Slay? He's actually cousins with the Lions safety Tracy Walker. So Slay's going to Detroit. Here's a picture of what it would look like. And then of course the Kelsey brothers. You're gonna hear about this 5,000 times during the Super Bowl. Eagles get an elite tight end, Chiefs get an elite lineman. On to another Pennsylvania team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, TJ Watt. Him and Derek Watt are going to Arizona. JJ is going to Pittsburgh. How about Connor Hayward and Cameron Hayward? They're on the same team, so once again, they're just going to stay put. But there is another Steeler that's going to be switching teams. Terrell Edmonds is going to Buffalo. In return, the Steelers are getting Tremaine. Staying in Buffalo, James Cook, very nice young running back, but he's going to Minnesota. Josh Allen's going to have a 92 overall running back in his backfield. Dalvin is a Buffalo Bill, but they giveth and they taketh away. Stephon is headed to Dallas for his brother Trayvon. So Josh gets an elite running back, but he loses an elite wide receiver. Dallas is going to be nasty with Stephon. I'm not too happy with this. This one right here though, this could change everything. Nick Chubb is leaving Cleveland. He's going to Miami. In return, they're getting Bradley Chubb. The Dolphins are going to be nasty. Browns fans, I know that one stung, but hey, it could be worse. You could be losing your quarterback. Like for instance, Arizona. They're sending Kyler Murray to Baltimore. In return, they get his cousin, Devin Duvernay. So now the quarterback room in Baltimore is a little bit crowded. You have an MVP, a former first overall pick, a Pro Bowler. And if we did this last year, Lamar would be headed to a different team, but his cousin Trayvon Mullen is actually on the Ravens, so they're both staying in Baltimore. However, there's one more quarterback that's going to be on the move. Matty Ice, he's headed to San Francisco. His cousin Mike McGlinchey is going to replace him. We have our first set of twins. CJ Moore and AJ Moore are identical twins. They're switching teams and they're around the same overall, so it's not that big of a switch, to be honest. They could literally pass for each other. Staying in the secondary, we're switching Kendall Fuller and Kyle Fuller. So the Ravens get an upgrade at cornerback. They're looking pretty stacked in this experiment. The Cowboys are gonna get nerfed just a little bit, okay? They're losing out on Zach Martin, best right guard in the game. In return, they're gonna get Nick Martin from the Commanders, 34 overalls less. We have some more linemen switching teams. David Questenberry and Scott Questenberry. Bills and Texans are gonna swap Questenberries. The Bosa brothers are swapping teams, of course. Nick is headed to Los Angeles. In return, the Niners are gonna get Joey. Quinnen Williams would be switching teams, but his brother Quincy is on the same exact team. Same situation as the Okorji brothers. You have Romeo and Julian both on the Lions. However, the Lions will be losing a very good player. Penei Sewell is going to New Orleans, okay? Nephi Sewell is headed to Detroit. And Lions fans, I'm sorry, but it gets even worse. You're gonna lose out on Amon-Ra St. Brown. In return, you're gonna get Equanimous from Chicago. Justin Fields gets a huge upgrade at wide receiver. Staying with the wide receivers, we have Zay Jones, who's leaving Jacksonville. He's getting traded for V Jones, his brother, in Seattle. And then the final trade of the video, Lorenzo Fatukasi is leaving Jacksonville for New England. His brother Olakunle is headed back in return. There are some other names you might be asking where they are, like the McCourty brothers. One of them's not in the game. Antonio Brown would have been traded for Hollywood Brown, but AB's not in the game. So if there's anyone else you're thinking of that should have been traded, that's why they're not traded, because one of those relatives are not in the game. Now we sim to the playoffs and see who shook up their new team the most. Like the video if you guys are enjoying it, man. Can we get to 1,000 likes? I think we could do that, right? The Chargers end up with the 1 seed. Dolphins end up with the 2 seed in the AFC. The Bills, Colts, Bengals, Chiefs, and Raiders end up making the playoffs. In the NFC, it was the Packers that got the 1 seed. The Eagles end up with the 2 seed. Cowboys, Bears, Niners, Saints, and Panthers end up making the playoffs. Mahomes leads the way in passing yards. Here's the rest of the top 10. Colt McCoy was in there because Kyler is no longer on the Cardinals, man. Look at that. Brady ties with Mahomes for the most touchdowns. Did you see Taylor Heineke in the top 3? Didn't expect to see him in there. I'll be completely honest. There's the rest of the top 10. Jonathan Taylor leads the way in rushing yards for the Colts. Nick Chubb was top 3 for the Dolphins. 21 touchdowns for Mr. Kamara to lead the entire league. Bobby in the top 10. As far as receiving, Cooper Kupp, of course, led the way with 1,746 receiving yards. Robert Woods in the top 2, man. He had himself a nice season. Mr. Kupp also had the most receptions, 119, to lead everyone. Look at Jody Fortson, the tight end. Greg Dulcich, another tight end. And then 16 touchdowns for Cooper Kupp. He had a triple crown, another one, okay? Beasley was second with 14. That's crazy, man. A lot of guys got a lot of touchdowns. Nicholas Moreau had the most tackles in the league. 34 tackles for a loss for JJ Watt on his new team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, man. They had 2 guys in the top 10. Cameron Hayward was in there as well. Nick Bosa on the Chargers had 19, but it was Aaron Donald who set a new sack record, 27.5 for the Los Angeles Rams. Vaughn was right there. Nick Bosa was in the top 5 on his new team, the Chargers. Anyone else that switched teams? Oh yeah, TJ Watt, of course, on the Cardinals. He was up there. He had 12. Joey Bosa on the Niners had 11.5. 8 INTs for Stephon Gilmore to lead everybody. Big Play Slay had 3 INTs for the Lions. That's a good season. MVP goes to Jalen Hurts. Jacobs ends up with OPOY in the AFC. Vaughn ends up with the DPOY. Bosa was right there. In the NFC, OPOY went to Alvin Kamara, and DPOY went to Aaron Donald. Dalvin Cook had 1,000 yards on his new team, 9 touchdowns. James Cook only had 322 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was the backup, apparently. Nick Chubb had 1,600 yards, 14 touchdowns for the Dolphins. Meanwhile, Bradley Chubb only had 1.5 sacks on the season for the Browns. Travis Kelce had 73 catches, 800 yards, 4 touchdowns for the Eagles. Not a bad season. His brother Jason Kelce only allowed 2 sacks, and he played over 1,200 downs. Stephon Diggs had 88 catches, 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns for the Cowboys. Solid season. His brother Trayvon had an INT for the Bills and half of a sack. 79 tackles too. How about Joey Bosa on the Niners? 11.5 sacks, 83 tackles, 11 tackles for a loss. His brother Nick on the Chargers had 15.5 sacks, tied for the most on his team. 19 tackles for a loss. Amon-Ra had the most receptions on the Bears. Second most yards with 950 and 8 touchdowns. This is a really solid season. Meanwhile, Equinemius got a goose egg. I don't know why they didn't use him. Kendall Fuller didn't get an INT for the Ravens, but he did have 81 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss. Meanwhile, his brother Kyle did get an INT for the Commanders. Kyler didn't get any playing time. Lamar was the starter. And unfortunately, Duvernay didn't get any playing time for the Cardinals. Matty Ice ended up being the backup to Jimmy G. Meanwhile, his cousin Mike McGlinchey allowed 6 sacks on 1,000 downs played. Tracy Walker got himself an INT. And as we sim to the Super Bowl, it's a great time to subscribe if you haven't already. You can't make this up. The actual Super Bowl matchup in real life is the same Super Bowl matchup in this experiment. Both Kelce brothers are gonna be in it. And I feel like I have to show the playoff schedule because there's some knuckleheads that'll be like, oh, it's rigged, this, that, and the third. Well, there's no forced wins, okay? You can see it for yourself right here. A lot of close games. You had the Dolphins with Chubb barely losing to the Chiefs with Jason Kelce, and then the Eagles with Travis end up getting it done against the Saints. Final game of the season, Jalen Hurts with a 99 overall tight end. Like, did we really need another elite tight end? Yes, Goddard is already elite in my opinion, but obviously there's a little bit of a downgrade. Okay, a lot of a downgrade at center. Even though I like Cam Jurgens, I think he has potential, especially with Stoutland. I think he's going to be a stud when Kelce retires. But losing that presence at center is going to hurt. Obviously, it didn't hurt them too much because they still got to the Super Bowl. 3rd and 6, first drive of the game. Can Hurts keep the chains moving? He's going to his new 99 overall tight end. They're moving the chain. 3rd and goal. Eagles at the 6. Hurts in the shotgun. Let's see where he decides to go. 4-man rush again. Touchdown, Devontae Smith. Now it's Mahomes' turn. He doesn't have his trusty tight end, Travis Kelce. But did you see the stats Jody Fortson put up? Like, clearly, That man has potential. Pacheco gets 1 yard on his first run of the game, running behind that amazing O-line. Now you have Creed Humphrey, Jason Kelsey, both of them on the offensive line. That's a nasty duo. McKinnon gets a decent gain. Gonna bring up a 3rd and short. Let's see where Mahomes decides to go. Gotta keep pace with this Eagles offense. They have too many weapons, but Mahomes makes it work with anybody. MVS gets the first down. But would you look at that? I love this call, man. 4th and 1. Early in the game, in the Super Bowl, they're gonna go for it. The toss to the right side. Pacheco not gonna get there. I think it was the right decision, maybe just the wrong play call. Eagles take the lead heading into halftime. The Chiefs get 3, but then the Eagles strike back with a touchdown, another touchdown. Philadelphia is gonna win the Super Bowl, man. Hopefully this happens in real life too, you know what I'm saying? Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Shout out to the first channel member on the channel. We have Chili, Bird's Nest Tier 1. I got a video coming out for the members, so be on the lookout for that.